Hey everyone, thank you so much for joining us today. Hope you are doing well. Welcome back to the second community call from ToolJet. No matter where you're joining from, you're openly welcome and heartily welcome. Thank you so much for joining us for today. And today we'll be talking more about tables and diving deep into it, and also learning the best in a way that how to, using it like a pro, as you got it from the title. So I'll be handing it off to Shubham. So he'll be walking us through the quick releases, new updates, and all this stuff. And then we'll be moving forward to the session all about tables. Thank you so much for joining again. And over to you, Shubham.
Hey, thanks, Teja, for the introduction. Welcome, everyone. Thanks for joining in. Thanks for taking out time for talking to us, for sparing time to listen about ToolJet and to learn about ToolJet, and also very much thankful for all you guys to trying out the product, using it, and providing active feedback on our Slack channel and on GitHub issues. That is really helpful, and we really appreciate that. Right, so let's get into today's agenda. Let me quickly share my screen. Just a second. Okay. Cool. So we'll go through today's agenda quickly. So today we'll be speaking about, as usual, we'll be talking about the product updates, like what all we have launched recently, what all are we going to launch right after this time. So we'll be speaking some things about that. And then we'll have a deep dive on tables. So tables is one of the most important widget or component used by ToolJet customers to build very functional and very awesome apps which solve their daily business problems, right? So we will be deep diving into tables, what all cool stuff we can build with tables. Our architect Sherfin will be sharing that after product updates. And lastly, we'll open the floor for any kind of Q&A you have about the product, about tables, or any other widget or anything in general about ToolJet, right? So let's get into. So we will talk about the new releases. So we have made one of the releases around 2 weeks back, and that is the latest release of ToolJet. And there we have released some cool features, and there is one pending release which will happen this Monday, which is also developed by the hard work of our internal engineers and about community members in last 15-20 days, right? So we have recently released this new integration, which is GitHub Enterprise SSO. So earlier we used to support GitHub SSO, like you can log in with GitHub login on ToolJet dashboard. But now we have supported their enterprise version also, which was earlier only available, was not available, right? Then there's another few data sources which we have added. One is Cosmos DB, another is ClickHouse. As I mentioned, this will be released on 5th of September, the Monday, so that you can just tune for it. Then another cool feature which we are very proud of is localization support. We want ToolJet to be accessible not only by English-speaking community, not only by countries which are English first, but we also want to take ToolJet to different parts of the world where any kind of language, which language is speaked, right, is spoken, right, from French, Spanish, Portuguese. So we want to support all these languages. So we have added localization support. Now ToolJet product as a product can be translated into any of these languages which might be required by any of you. So we'll be starting with French. So we'll be openly inviting everyone from the community to help us translate into French. So yeah, we'll be releasing this, and we'll be sharing the documentation how one can translate the product and what all you have to do, right? So this is a very unique opportunity where not just developers, but also people from content writing fraternity can also support ToolJet by open source method by contributing to the language, part, right? In addition to French, if you want to support any other language of your local region, let us know. We'll be happy to start supporting that as well, right? So other than that, these are the three main features which we released or are releasing on this Monday. We are also adding few other enhancement to existing product, which will improve day-to-day developer experience, which will improve day-to-day productivity of development on ToolJet in general, right? So one of the major features is this area selection. Now, a lot of developers, users told us that they have difficulty in building complex applications or aligning complex widgets on the screen because they have to move every widget individually. Now you can select multiple widgets using mouse and select an area, and whatever widget is there, they will be auto selected, and you can just play around with that, move around here and there, right? It's very, very helpful for container widgets or layout widgets where you have one container widget and you can hold many other small components and widgets inside it. And if you were to kind of move it all together, so this would be really handy and useful there. Then we have added certain improvements in PDF viewer. We have added certain improvements in text input table. A lot of changes in table have been done in the form of UX. So a lot of design themes were not very pretty earlier. So we have corrected a lot of things there. A lot of things in search, a lot of things in pagination. Those certain UI tweaks have been done. But what is great is that we are working on a full-fledged table revamp where we'll be adding mega features. We'll be adding some major improvements which will kind of help us take the table feature another step ahead, right? So I'm not going to just spoil the surprise behind it, and let us scope it more, and we'll slowly kind of share with you in future calls, right? Then we had certain fixes in date picker as well. Another great feature which is useful for teams, for people who are using a tooljet in large teams. They always had this issue that when they were commenting, their coworker was not getting notified about what they commented on, right? So this is really, really important for team collaboration, for people working large teams, building complex applications on ToolJet. So yeah, this could be really, really helpful for all those people, right? So we have released that as well. Cool. So these were the major highlights of the recent release, and there are some 100 more bug fixes and small improvements in ToolJet which we have done recently, which you can go to this link and get a more in-depth knowledge about. Cool. So feel free to ask any comments, or feel free to ask any questions regarding these in the chat section, and we'll be happy to reply to these at the end of the session as well, right? Cool. Yep. So what's upcoming, right? So one of these things is, which we are not going to reveal. It's a sort of a secret project. It's just something very, very huge, which will kind of change, not just change, but improve the experience of using ToolJet by 10x, right? And this will not just be useful for the end customer, but this is also useful for individual community members. It will give or open new paths for individual community members or individual developers or open source enthusiasts to kind of work more closely with ToolJet. It will also enable to build their own experiences, build their own products, bring their own, solve their own problems all by themselves without much without getting to know the complete code base, right? So I think I've left enough hints, so it would be self-understandable by now, but even if it's not, no problem, we will kind of release it in a month's time. Probably should be able to get initial beta flavor of this in 2 weeks time, and then we'll do a full-fledged launch in a month's time, right? And that's really going to be great for everyone around. Cool. After that, we are adding finally some more widgets, which can be really useful, and they have been selected after constant feedback from a lot of our customers who engage with us on GitHub and Slack, and these are the three widgets which we feel are highly requested from the community members. Icons, because it adds certain color, it adds certain design prettiness to the prettiness to the app. So icons are really helpful there. Links are also helpful because now complex apps are made and people need to redirect to certain areas for in the app or into the external web is quite useful. Form is pretty useful. Right now, we do not support form as a widget. You can create your own forms using different input types of inputs we provide, like text input, password input, toggles, forms, submit button. So you can create your own forms, but we want to improve or further ease down the process of creating forms, because that is one of the most important things people build using ToolJet, right? So we want to further simplify that process and bring on a form widget where creating a form would be much more simpler than creating a form by combining all the separate widgets, right? So that's the idea behind it. Since forms have there are a lot of forms being created on daily basis on tooljet using different other widgets. We want to give that make that experience more simpler, right? Then there are a lot of requests, lot of enthusiasm about integrations like Zendesk and HubSpot, mainly because people want to kind of build their own dashboards on top of these tools and gather data from various other products and kind of want to visualize them together in a single dashboard, right? So ToolJet will act as a central tool, managing a lot of SaaS tools, managing a lot of other products companies use, and using that data, people would want to build different experiences, solve different business problems, right? So we have chosen these two integrations on the basis of, again, community feedback from Slack, GitHub. Also, we have started talking to customers on daily basis or weekly basis, people who would like to share what they're building, people who would like to share their issues with us. Those calls are also very helpful. If any of you would want to be a part of that, just write to us and we would be happy to hop on a call and understand and learn from you. Then we have also are going to add a very popular data source which is called MariaDB. And then after these major products, we have these enhancements, which again are focused on improving the user experience, improving the developer experience. So in next 1 month or two, we really want to focus our energies on improving the developer experience so that the apps which come out of the tool are built much more faster, and developer has put like his best, right, and has to do less work and still going to get a better app coming out of the effort, right? So we really want to focus on features which are used by developers on a daily basis on the platform and will help them build app faster and bring them customer delight, user delight, right? So we have heard a lot of issues around undo redo, that there are some missing gaps there in the functionality. There are a lot of gaps in copy paste functionality, and there are certain enhancements which we want to build in query builder so that it is more helpful and more responsive in general, right? So yeah, all in all, these are the few big and small things we are working on right now. If any of you are interested in contributing in any of these areas, please feel free to go to GitHub issues and find the relevant issue and ask to be included. Or you can just write us to the email, which will come at the end of the session, and ask that where you can help, and we'll be happy to work with you and collaborate with you. Right? Cool. Any other questions? Please happy to answer them at the end of the session. Please keep them coming in the chat section. Cool. I think that's it from me today. We'll hand over to my colleague Sherfin, who is the de facto expert of ToolJet. He knows everything in and out. So please, off to Sherfin. Thank you.
Thank you, Shubham. Yeah, so like you said, tables are one of the most important, if not the most important widget in ToolJet. We get questions from users all the time about how to implement this logic or how to get around this situation, and all such issues are coming up. So my plan, if I can share my screen, I'll right now do that. Yeah. So yeah, my plan today is to give supply a basic introduction of table. Uh, I'll just go through the various properties and styles of the table widget. Then I could also perhaps try to show how to integrate table with a PostgreSQL database, which is also considered a basic feature of table. Then we'll move on to some comparatively intermediate features, such as applying colors based on conditional logic, expanding. So we have rows in table, and we don't presently have a feature to expand the rows. So there is a workaround. There is an excellent workaround for that. So that I'll be demoing. Then also filters. So in table, we'll have different types of filters that we need to apply. These are advanced filters, not the filters that come with ToolJet table. So we'll do a demo of how to implement that. Also, there is an advanced feature. When I say advanced, and it's referring to relatively advanced to the basic stuff, which is bulk update, which is to make changes to cell values in table. And when you press a button, you need that all of those changes to be reflected in your database. So that is what bulk update is, and I'll also be trying to demo an application with us which has a bulk update. Yeah. So let's get to the ToolJet platform. By all means, interrupt me and ask questions, Teja, if there are any. So this is the basic default table that comes with ToolJet. By default, it comes with, as you can see, a set of features. Like you have a search bar, you have a advanced filter button where you can supply conditional logic on filters. You have a download button which downloads whatever data there is in the table. You have a pagination, you have a number of records. You can also edit and modify your column sizes. So these are the default basic features that ToolJet table comes with. We'll move on to the most vital property that you have to supply for a ToolJet table to work, which is obviously its table data. So I have a slide here which might be more visible. So what you see on my left is the table data that we have to supply for the table to render the data that you see on the right to work. So the data has to be in this format. It is a JavaScript array, each element of which will be a JavaScript object. And if you observe the first element, it is ID1, name Sarah, and email Sarah at example.com. If you look at the first row of the table, it is ID1, name Sarah, and email Sarah at example.com. So as you can deduce, each element corresponds to each row of the table. And as you might have also already observed, the table header column names are being derived from the ID name, from the key names of the object that you are passing in, which are ID, name, and email. That is exactly what is reflected here. So that is how you supply table data. Obviously, the next question would be, how do we configure the columns? How do we change, for example, if we need to change the name of the ID column, how do we do that? So there is a full configuration here for the tables. You can change the table ordering. For example, here you can see I just changed the ID to the second column, and you can see that reflected immediately on the table. I will just change it back. If you click on any of the column configuration setting, you can see a pop-out with even more configurations. So let's try changing this header name to identity instead of ID. As you can see, that header name is immediately reflected. Obviously, the data is not there because we have to specify the key from which the data needs to be taken, and identity, because we changed the column name to identity, the key now needs to be specifically mentioned, which in this case is ID. So I'll just specify ID, and you can see that the data is coming back. There are different types of columns that you can have in ToolJet, such as basic string. Then there is text, which is used to display large quantities of text if there is that. So there is no issue of trimming or scrolling or words breaking or anything like that. Then you have obviously badges, tags, drop down, multi-select, date picker. It will be a bit verbose to go through each of these, and many of you might already be knowing most of these. So I'll just skip that for the time being. Okay. So that's all about columns. Basically, we have this is an important feature of ToolJet, something called action buttons. We can add a new column called actions where there are these buttons, and to these buttons we can apply various event handlers. For instance, I can just show an alert and make it display the email of the row which I clicked. So I'll do something like this: selected row and email. And as you can see, the button on the row in which I'm clicking, its corresponding email is being alerted. So this is not just for alerts. This is also for any other action that you have in ToolJet. You can use these buttons. Then we'll just quickly go through all the miscellaneous features, options that we have with ToolJet. Server-side pagination and client-side pagination. Obviously, as you can see, server-side pagination comes without a bound, and you can connect the pagination even to some action that you like. We also have the ability to show and hide many of the features. So you can basically hide all these buttons, hide the search box, for instance, and even hide the pagination. So you can have a table like this if you wish, which is completely bare bone, if I may call it that. Yeah. Obviously, we also have a loading state, which makes a loading icon show in the table. And then again, we have a lot of styles, which are pretty much self-explanatory. You can supply the border radius. We can select stripe table, for example, which is a better design. You can increase the cell size, for instance. So this is a more spacious table, as you can see. Yeah, so these are the basic properties and styles that come with table. Many of you might already be knowing these things, so that is why I'm skimming quickly through that. So if there are any questions, you can surely ask. So,
Yeah, Sherfin, we have two. So if you can open the chat window, you can actually read them out and address them.
okay. The first question, so I'm seeing a question to make Windows installable, so I will address that later. So if one of you can note it down. So the first question I'm seeing is there a way to set the maximum row height in cases where one of the columns has a text that could be really long? Some kind of vertical scrolling perhaps. Yeah, so we don't have a maximum height, maximum row height. What we can do is, as you can see, I have selected the cell size to spacious. I'll increase the, I'll supply some long text here. Yeah, so basically, you need to set the maximum rows or row height there. There is no option to set the maximum row height right now, but what we can do is select this overflow option and set it to scroll. So you can see that this height will always be consistent and the scroll will be available. At the moment, you only have two options for row height, which is spacious and compact. Compact will be like this and spacious will be like this. So that is what we have at the moment, and I'm happy to consider improving by adding new features in this area. I'm moving on to the second question. How does a filter work with a server-side pagination? How does the filter work with it? Oh yeah, so server-side pagination, you don't have to. Where is it? Server-side pagination. Oh yeah, so in server-side pagination, I would recommend you to implement custom filters. So filter does work in server-side pagination. I mean, in the exact same manner that it works in client-side pagination. But obviously, when you use server-side pagination, you will, for instance, have something like a SQL query or something that you query the server, and inside that query, you can apply a filter. So if you need to only select the people with a letter S in them, then I would recommend you to use the corresponding SQL query or corresponding API configuration for that. Because if you are using this particular filter, it will only filter in the client-side data that you have. It will not go out to the server and filter, as you can probably imagine. That is my suggestion. If you're using server-side pagination, by all means, try and use filters. Implement custom filters using your SQL queries or whichever data source that you're using. So these are the two questions that I've seen. So I'm moving on. Yeah. So as you can see, this is a demo skeleton application that I've created. I have a PostgreSQL data store that I've already connected with. So I'll just try and create. I have a column called feature request. I have a table called feature requests that I've already created. So let's try fetching that from feature requests. Yes, yeah. So we have a set of feature requests. Forget about feature requests. This is a set of data that I just fetched from the PostgreSQL database that I just connected with. I'm creating this query. Actually, I'm just running that query again. I'll drag in a table instead of this sample data. I'll call the queries data like this. Obviously, as you can see, the ID has come in, but the name and email is not there. That is because there is no name key and email key in the data that we're supplying. The keys are title and description. So I'll change these column names to title. I'll change this name to description. Yeah. So you have the table populated with title and description, as you can see. So this is a very basic example of how we can integrate this ToolJet table with a Postgres database. As you can see, it's a simple select query, and I'm just plugging the data to the table. So let's go ahead and let me show you an application that I've already prepared for you. So this is a bit of a big app, so it will be a bit too tedious and verbose to implement it live on this code. So yeah, so this is the application. The idea behind this application is that people can visit and request for new features from ToolJet. These are just dummy data, testing data. These are not real business data. So my table has an ID, a title for each of the feature requests that you would give me. Each feature request should have a description, a priority. Then whomever is visiting the application can upload and download the features. For instance, if so this particular feature has only one vote. It's called ABC. I'm upvoting it. And you can see that ABC now has 2 votes. I'm upvoting it again. And you can see that ABC has climbed all the way up here with 3 votes. So that is how this application is intended to work. you can see that there is a priority that we can supply for each of the feature requests. To add a feature request, just click on this button, supply the name, whichever name that you want for the feature request, whichever description that you want for the feature request, and select the priority. If you think it's an urgent feature, then you can select very high. If it's not an urgent feature, you can select very low. As soon as you click on the button, you will have that feature added. Yes, so that feature is in here, new name, new description, very high, and there are no words at the moment. One additional feature that I've built is this filter. Right now it's on all, that means every feature request is shown. If I only want to select the very high feature priority feature request, you can do that. The only very high priority feature requests are there. Yeah. So this is the table. This is the application that I've prepared for you for this code. Let's go through some of the features which are considered a bit advanced that I have implemented in this application, which is applying colors. Okay, so we have each feature with a certain kind of priority set. So let's try. Let's try and apply colors to this votes section. So if the number of votes for a feature is greater than 0, it will be on green. And if the number of votes for a feature is less than 0, it will be on red. So how do I do that? I'll go straight to this votes column settings. You can see that there is a text color available there. I also have a variable called cell value that is made available by ToolJet. So as you can see, cell value 7 is here. So it is one of the rows is having 7. So if I'm applying a condition here, if cell value is greater than 0 or greater than or equal to 0, we'll say green. So this is a CSS color cell. You can supply any CSS approved value in here. Otherwise, I'll say red. Right. So as you can see, all of these features are now in green, except for this one, which has a less than 0 votes. Let's try downvoting on another feature. Yes. So that feature also is now red. So this is a way using which we can conditionally color the text inside each of the cells. We can also use the cell background color to conditionally color the cell itself. So I'll just go ahead and try that. I'll first make it a classic table so that there are no default colors applied. Then I'll go to votes. So instead of this one, I'll apply the same logic in here. And as you can see, the cell itself got colored. So this logic will work hand in hand with every other feature. So even if you are, let's say, selecting a filter like this, your this coloring logic, everything will persist all the same. So this is a reliable way of implementing conditional coloring of table cells and table text. Let me just try downvoting this just for curiosity, and it flips, as you can see. So this whole downvote, coloring, and filter feature are all working hand in hand. Yeah, so that is a coloring feature. I'll just check. Okay, I have some questions. Can the cell values be editable from the table itself? Yes. So this is a bit of an advanced feature, and I'll be trying to demonstrate that by the end of the session. So I'll definitely address this question as soon as I get to it. Expandable rows, yeah. So I don't have, so I already have implemented expandable rows in here. So I don't have anything to show you hands-on. So I'll just demo it to you. So as you can see, we don't have a method to expand the rows built in, but this is more like a workaround that we apply. So as you can see, I have three action buttons, upward and downward. Upward and downward are in there, and I have another action button which I am just calling plus, and I'm setting the position of that action button to left side. What it does for me is that this action button will go in here. It will have just this plus icon, so it will kind of look like an expandable option for the row. What I have done with that action button is that I have applied a handler. So on click, I'll show a model which I have already created, and I'll run a query which will fill comments related to this particular feature inside the table, inside the model. Let's see that in action. So these are the comments for the new feature that we just created. So as you can see, there are no comments. So let's try creating one. Yes, that comment has been recorded. So that is how this works. So you might be wondering how. So if I click on this particular feature, for example, only the comments for that feature will come. If I click on this feature which we have just created, the comment that we just created come. So how can we make sure that whenever the user presses on the button, only the row for which it was clicked? It is obviously based on the selected row that is exposed by the table. So you can see that there is something called selected row that is being exposed by the table. So the moment you click on any of the action button, the corresponding row will be exposed as selected row, and I have all the information of that row in this variable. So the second event handler which happens when I press on that button is a run query, which runs this query called fetch comments. Let's observe what is there in fetch comments. You can see that this is a simple SQL query to fetch comments. The only catch here is that I am supplying the ID of the corresponding feature as the ID from the selected row. This is doing the trick. This is what is making the table inside the model fetch only the comments related to the table, the feature request that we are selecting. So yeah, this is how expandable rows can be worked around in ToolJet at the moment. I'll go to the comments. Column of the user. Is there a way to add a column where the user can select multiple tags options from a drop-down? Something similar to Airtable multi-select. Okay, I'm not very familiar with Airtable multi-select. So I'll have to move on from that question for the time being. Perhaps Teja, yourself can take that question. I'll just generally answer that the columns are not dynamically configurable at the moment. We have to manually configure them. We are considering implementing a auto generating of table configuration, but it is not there at the moment. I'll move on to the next feature. Yeah, filters. One simple feature that you might see here is the priority filter. If I select low, for example, I only see the task with low priority here. So this is very simple. I'm simply using an SQL feature. So this is the fetch features request, the fetch feature request query using which I'm populating the table. And as you can see that I have added a where condition here. And in that where condition, I'm simply supplying the value of this priority filter. So if it's set to low, then the query looks like, as you can see on my screen, select star from feature request where priority equals to low. If I change it to very low, for example, the query changes to select star from feature request where priority equals very low. So that is how this filter has been implemented. If anyone requests, I can go ahead and try and implement another filter for some another column. That would be kind of simple. So I think one of the members of the audience asked how would we use filters in server-side pagination. So this is not server-side pagination, but this is still server-side. So as you can see, I'm using the data source itself to apply that filter in a custom implementation mechanism. Here, because it's an SQL data source, I'm using the SQL method for it. So that concludes filters. Basically, this is the equation for filter. Add any input widget. Here it is a drop down. It can be an input field. It can be a text field, a text area, a number input, a multi-select, anything. Any input widget will do. Plus SQL in the case of PostgreSQL or whichever data source that you are using, its query language or its query mechanism, its query apparatus. Yeah, so this is the last and perhaps the most advanced thing that we are showing today. Bulk update. I think one of the members of the audience asked how we can update from the table, update values from the table itself. So what I'm going to do is let's try and make it so that the users can update this description. So I'll select the settings for description and I'll select this option called make editable. I'm making it editable, and as you can see that we can type anywhere in the description right now. So I'll change the some description to awesome description. And please observe that two buttons have showed up. One is save changes, one is discard changes. So if you go and check the table inspector right now, you can see a key called data updates that has been populated. And you can see that there is only one entry inside data updates, which is this. So this particular feature request having ID 1, title new, had been updated, and the updated values of that row is being shown in here. And because we know that description is the only column that is being updated right now, we only have to check description. As you can see, the new description that I've just typed in is being shown in here. So if I may just pin this here and I change it to something else, you can see that the description immediately reflected on that key. So what we have to do now is to create an SQL query that converts this. So I have a slide which shows this. So in here there is Sarah, Jane, Sam, and John was the initial data. I changed Jane to Ashoka, which is a Star Wars name. I'm sorry, I'll drop Star Wars names all the time. So it was Lisa. The name was Lisa, and I changed it to Ashoka. So you can see that the data updates has turned into that particular row with the updated name. So what we need to do is convert this data updates object into a set of update statements in SQL, into a set of SQL update statements. So let's try and do that. I'll also just change another description to yet another description. Let's try and I already have the query here, but let's just try to construct that query ourselves. We'll call it new update. Obviously, let's try to obtain that data updates in here. Table one dot data updates. Yeah. So I have the data updates objects in here. So it is an object. The key of each will be the cardinal status of the row, which is if it's nth row, then n is being displayed here. So I just need the values of that row. So I'll just do a simple JavaScript usage, which is object.values. Now I have the changed feature requests in here. Because I know that description is the field that people are editing, because that is the only editable field. I have to create a query that looks something like update feature request set description equals whatever description is here, where ID equals whatever ID is supplied in here. So let me try and map this. So I have an array now. Let me try and map it to SQL statements. So update. I hope you're able to see the SQL statements being generated in the preview here. Update feature requests is my table name. Set description equals it has to be the update dot description. So this update variable contains each row that has been updated. Yeah, so if you observe the preview, it says update feature request set description equals whichever new description that was supplied. I also have to supply a where condition to identify the ID of the row, which will be available in the update variable like this. Yeah. So as you can see, we have two update statements now. Update feature request set description equals new description where ID equals this. Also another update statements corresponding to the two updates that we have made in here. So obviously this is a array right now. So I'll have to convert it into SQL statement. So I'll simply join it with a semicolon, making it a valid SQL statement. So this is an SQL statement, semicolon, another SQL statement. So when you run this query, both of these SQL statements will go into the database. So I've created that query. Now I have to connect the save changes button to that query. For that, I'll go to the table again. I'll go to the events of the table, and I have an event called bulk update. So whenever the user clicks on save changes, this bulk update event is being run. I'll run query, which query? The query that we just created. So we have connected the save changes to the query. I'll also just make sure that this new update query is connected to the fetch feature request query, which will update the table so that whenever a user makes a change, user edits any of the description, the table is reloaded. So let's try saving changes. Yes, so as you can see, the new description has come in here. These are not the old descriptions, these are the descriptions that we set anew right now. So let me just release it and let me just review it. Yeah. Are there any rate limits? Somebody has asked. Are there any rate limits for this? So, so I'm answering the question from the table. So there are 10 requests in each. There are 10 rows available in each page. Whatever comes in, go to the next page. If that is what you meant by rate. If you're talking about the query, SQL query running rates, frequency and all, I will not be able to answer right now. I'll follow up on community Slack channel. Let me just update the description of this question. And I'll try to save it. Yes, I was able to honor that question with a good description. Yep. So that is the last feature that I wanted to show you. I'm happy to take more questions. I'll also So Teja, if you could paste, I'll go ahead and delete all the feature requests that are there right now. Delete feature requests. No, this is tough. So if you have feature requests, maybe you can just add it on top of this dummy data. I'll ask questions. Teja, if you could please also paste the link for that app so that we can use it.
Oh yes, they we already shared it, so I think
Okay.
they're exploring it.
Okay. So is there any question for me left?
Okay, we want. I know they want to get this app in hand, so maybe we can share this with them by any means.
Absolutely, absolutely. We can share the export JSON for this app in the Slack community channel.
Awesome. Okay, so for any other questions, feel free to drop it in the chat, or if you would like to speak to us and talk to us and ask it in over the mic. So feel free to drop it here if we would like to unmute you. But I think you can unmute yourself.
Let me
very
try
sure.
that. I'm not very very good with
Yeah.
with this whole Zoom.
So Sherfin, you got another question. So how can we implement multiple page apps? Sorry, implement multi-page apps.
A multi-page app is a feature that we don't have yet. I can supply a workaround right now. So let me share my screen again. So multi-page app, we don't have that feature right now. But what you can do is use a tabs widget. Just put that tabs and make it encompass your whole canvas. You can hide those tabs. Obviously, as you can see, we have a default tab feature here. We have three tabs that are defined here. So what I'll do is I'll add some buttons, some widgets in here. I'll go to the second tab and I'll add another set of widgets. Select drop down video button, these things. So I'll hide these tabs of from top. So if we see the default tab is now in 0, if I set it to 1, you can see that the new set of widgets that we've created have come. You can go back to the first tab like this. So this is kind of like pseudo pages. What you can do is use the variables feature that ToolJet has. Variables.page. Yeah. So initially it is 0. So if I add a button like, so this button could be called something like next page, for example. And I can just add an event which sets a variable, and I'll set the page variable to the value 1. So as soon as I click on this button, you can see that the entire tabs component switch to the second page. So you can implement some logic around like this and make use of this tabs widget to encompass your whole application, and thereby creating this effect of multiple pages. It's not exactly multiple pages, but you can kind of work around with that. Yep, that's my answer.
Awesome. Hope that
Also,
answers
just to
Shiva.
add to that, Tej, I'll just quickly share more context on this. So yeah, we do not have support of multi-page apps as of now, but that is something which is on our roadmap and at a very high priority also. So we are working towards building that feature, and we should be able to release it in a couple of cycles. We'll keep you posted through community calls and various other roadmap. Thank you.
Great, I think that helps. So, are there any other questions? Let us know. So we would hang on for a while. So we are on time. So by the way, congratulations, Sherfin. You did it on time.
Thank you.
All right, Kaushik has another question. So he was asking about window version. Kaushik, can you elaborate more on that?
Hi, this is Kaushik here. Actually, I'm more comfortable in Windows, so I don't see a window version or any way I can. Of course, there is a Docker, but I am not familiar with the Docker as well. So I don't know how to install on Windows.
May I take that question?
Yeah, please.
Yeah. So the thing is, like currently in ToolJet, there are like a lot of dependencies, and these dependencies are like set to made to work with like Linux-based systems. So that's why there's a Dockerized environment. So and I think like there is an issue regarding like Windows. There is some like the app isn't booting up also. So we haven't gotten time to prioritize and look into it at the moment. But I don't see like in foreseeable like very near future that we might support Windows, like right out of the box. Maybe if we can, like there is some sort of plan to like decouple our dependencies directly like from ToolJet. So if we are able to do that, then it would be like kind of possible to do that, install it directly. Like as of now, it cannot be done.
I just wanted to actually, I'm a business person. I have another business and I want to automate my tasks. And I've seen ToolJet, so I thought, let me get into it and I can help myself. So that's why I asked. If it is a window, I can make it that way. Otherwise, anyway, I'll go through your site if I can find a solution, or if I have any
Maybe you
issue.
can use a cloud version, Kaushik. Then you don't have to install it on your own desktop. You can just use our cloud version. You can create an account on tooljet.com and then you can just use it in the browser. You just don't need to install it on your computer. That's easier, I guess, for you.
Let me check that and I'll come back to you.
Yeah.
If I can help, I'll let you know, guys. Thank you so much.
Feel free to chat with us on Slack.
Sure. Thank you.
Yeah.
All right. So so I'm just dropping the Slack workspace URL. So tooljet.com/Slack. If you just go there, you would be directly invited to join the Slack channel where we have a general channel. So if you have any further questions, you can directly post there. Or if you want to talk about anything about the specific to the session, you can always open to reach out to Sherfin or even post in the general as I mentioned earlier. All right. So for any other further questions, we can still take them here. Or if you want to go more into that, you can always post it in the Slack. Awesome. We'll just hang on for a minute to see if there are any questions. So if there are any other people are typing there and we wanted to end it, so we don't want to do that. So we'll just hang on for a minute. All right. All right. Thank you so much, everyone, for joining us today. So we'll be keeping you posted for the coming calls. We have a coming furthermore initiatives. So we'll be keeping you in touch. We'll keeping you posted about that in the Luma page and in the Slack and everywhere. So keep an eye on that, and you will soon hear from us. And also, make sure you remember this every month, last Wednesday. So you would be having the same call all the time. So the community call is always every month, last Wednesday. Awesome. Thank you so much for joining us again. And thank you, Shubham, and thank you, Sherfin. And thanks to each and every single one of you for being here. All right. Bye-bye.